You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on AngryMarks.com with Peter H. and Stevie J. Find them on Twitter at HardcoreCDN and at AngryMarks. And now, for all the news, reviews, and interviews in mixed martial arts, it's time for Glove Up or Shut Up from AngryMarks.com.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up right here at AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Well, we've got a packed edition of Glove Up or Shut Up this week. We've got a UFC from Sao Paulo to talk about. We've got Bellator 205 to talk about. And coming up, their exclusive DAZN card. It's going to be a headbanger of a ball. It's going to be complete with the fourth ever fight between Vanderlei and Rampage and a middleweight world title fight. But we'll get to all that in a little bit.
So Bellator loves their trilogies. How do you feel about a four-time fight here?
Four-time fighting each other.
But first time in Bellator. So 2 in Pride, 1 in UFC, and now the fourth one's in Bellator.
Right. And I'll get into my notes on the press conference from that because I did get some comments from both of them.
Oh dear. Well, before we talk about Bellator this week, we should start the show with Bellator this past weekend. And it was in Idaho, and Stevie, the main event didn't go the distance, but it didn't disappoint either.
No, and I feel a little bit bad for John Teixeira at this point because when I interviewed him, I asked him about 2017 being a rough year for him because this was a guy who was once among the elite contenders in the featherweight division, and he had back-to-back losses last year, and I said, are you trying to get back on track? You know, is 2018 going to be your year? Are you going to make the big comeback? And he's like, yeah, of course. I'm going to go out there and prove myself and show I belong in Bellator and show that I'm worthy of getting a featherweight title shot. And then AJ McKee had absolutely none of that. He was like, you know what? I'm just going to clock you as hard as I can. He just leveled Teixeira with a left hand. And I swear to God, you remember when Lyoto Machida kicked Rashad Evans and his head was slumped to the side? That's exactly what Teixeira looked like after he collapsed. It was like Pinocchio's strings were cut. His whole body just went plop right on the mat.
Now, for those who watched Raw this week, I have a question to ask you, Stevie. What hurt more, this knockout or the one in the Divas, or the one in the women's match on Raw this past week when Liv Morgan got knocked out legit?
Well, the brutal thing about Liv Morgan's knockout was that she got concussed twice. The first one rocked her, and as she was crumbling, she got hit with a second one, smacking the kisser.
They're saying the first one knocked her out and the second one woke her back up. And I'm like, oh, don't use that phrase.
Yeah, that's multiple concussions. That's not a good thing. And this one didn't look that good for Teixeira either. He was not getting up very fast after this finish. And McKee was, at first he was celebrating. You know, he ran up the cage, he did a backflip, he was all excited. And then he was like, oh shit, I hope this dude's okay.
You know, I get nervous when they do the backflip off the end of the cage. It's like, someone's gonna fuck up.
Well, he didn't backflip off of the top of the cage. He backflipped off the fence into the cage. He like did a Matrix leap.
Okay. So it's not like jumping on the top of the cage and doing a full flip off the top then.
No.
Because you know someone's going to fuck up an ankle or something really
Actually,
bad.
Somebody has done that before. Somebody has blown out their ankle doing a celebration. I forget who.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that happen in the NFL with a field goal kicker winning the game and then jumping up and down.
Yeah, I saw that one too. I was also thinking of that when you mentioned it. But we're getting off track here.
Yeah, I mean, let's not take anything away from AJ McKee's dominant win here.
1 minute, 9 seconds for the knockout. 69 seconds. AJ McKee, if he wasn't on a roll before this fight, damn is he ever now.
So 69 seconds, he fucked him up.
Yeah.
Now, a highlight win like this, obviously you gotta think title shot.
At this point, you really can't do anything else. You gotta give him the winner of Pitbull versus Sanchez. There's no question. There's nobody left. I mean, everybody said he hadn't fought the top guys. Well, now he's fought the top guys. He's beaten all the guys he's supposed to beat.
Do you think that fight, let's say Pitbull comes out of that with his hand raised. Do you think that Pitbull AJ McKee fight goes more than one round?
I would think that as hard as they swing at each other, they're either gonna knock each other loopy in the first round, or they're just gonna weather the storm and go the distance. It's either gonna be one or the other. There's not gonna be any in between.
Yikes, that's a scary thought. And Teixeira, I mean, yes, he got knocked out. Yes, he got beat by the better man that night, but it's not a learning opportunity. He got caught. It popped, done, 69 seconds. You don't learn much from that fight.
No. And it's not like he can't still look at his record and go, you know, I've got over 20 wins. I'm still one of the top fighters in the world. But with 3 straight losses, you're moving down the ladder quicker than ever, and that's a very competitive featherweight division, so you can't afford to take back steps in Bellator.
I wonder if PFL would be interested.
I'm not saying they would cut him. Don't misunderstand me. I'm
Okay.
just saying he has removed himself from contendership at this point. He is out of the equation now.
No, I'm just thinking, I'm not saying cut him, but I'm thinking, do you think PFL would have interest on someone on 3 straight losses in Bellator?
I don't think they're interested in anybody unless they're a free agent, and he's not a free agent, so this is a moot discussion. I'm not sure what we're getting at here.
Okay. Let's move on to the co-main event with John Salter tapping out to Rafael Lovato Jr.
Yeah, although it didn't happen quickly. This was not the AJ McKee fight. This one took a while, and it was back and forth all the way with I call it a tale of 2 rounds. It's not a tale of 2 cities. It's a tale of 2 rounds, because in the first round, Salter was outpointing Lovato with the striking. In the second round, Lovato got Salter into a couple of potential submissions, couldn't finish anything, but was more offensive on the ground than his opponent. So I gave that round to Lovato. I gave the first round to Salter. And then in the third round, it finally all came together for Lovato when he got a back mount, and then Salter turned over trying to avoid a submission, and he just started getting creamed with lefts and rights to the head, and he gave up his back again, and the referee, he was just saying, you know, you gotta defend yourself, you gotta move, you gotta do something, and he was trying to find a better position, and Lovato was not giving him anywhere to go and just wailing on him. And finally, after he'd softened him up just enough, he got palm to palm on the rear naked choke, and Salter just immediately was like, tap, 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 tap. I've taken abuse. I've got no fight left in me. It's done.
I don't think he... how do I say this? This one is the opposite of what we talked about earlier, where you can take a lot from this fight, review the tape, see what worked, see what didn't work. But to get caught in the third round with a submission loss, I mean, you feel bad, and maybe if the game plan was a little different, it could have gone different. Like, I mean, I know it's Monday morning quarterbacking, but it's a situation where, I mean, Lovato Jr.
He weathered the storm and came out the better man at the end.
It reminds me of that fight, was it 3 weeks ago in UFC, where the one guy had left him an opening and got the fight was he did like an illegal move, so they stood him back up and gave his opponent that one opportunity, and the guy took it and ran with it and got the victory, knocked him out like 20 seconds later. It was like a 12-6 elbow or something, and they had to restart the fight.
I wouldn't call it the same situation. I think this is more like each guy had a strong round, and then one round just completely upended the apple cart, and one man took total advantage of his opponent in one round.
Well, third round is the one to do it in.
Mm-hmm.
What about this next fight here with Ortega and Kielholtz?
Okay, well, we had a surprising performance here from Vida Ortega because Kielholtz is a kickboxing world champion. She's highly decorated and a veteran of the sport. She was 2-1 in MMA coming in, and at least to my way of thinking, Ortega was not a striker on Kielholtz's level, so I just figured Kielholtz was just going to lay into her. And in the first round, I would have Kielholtz ahead 10-9, but then in the second round, she got cocky and paid for it, because Ortega started taking her down, and she'd get up, and she'd take her down, and she'd get up, and finally, Kielholtz was like, fuck this, you want to take me down, I'll take you down. And the minute she did it, Ortega trapped her in a guillotine choke and tapped her out. It's like, oh my God, you idiot. You could have won this fight standing. Why did you try to take her down? You just gave her the win.
I think she was trying to prove a point, and it backfired.
It backfired big time, because Kielholtz was winning this fight to that point.
Well, I think it's, you lure them into a false sense of security, and this is what happens.
Yeah, well, this is definitely one where you will look at the tape and learn something from it, because Kielholtz will look at this and go, God damn it, I shouldn't have taken her down. I was winning.
Now let's talk about Roger Huerta and Pitbull Patricky Freire.
Holy crap. This first round should be on everybody's must-watch list for 2018. This one round, the first 5 minutes of this fight, was two guys literally not giving a fuck about themselves or their opponent and just teeing off with every single punch they threw. This was bloody, this was brutal, this was carnage, and they knocked each other loopy multiple times in this round, and it could have gone either way, and it went all the way to the bell, and they survived it, and I gave it 10-9 to Roger Huerta, which I never thought I would do, but he outpointed him and landed the bigger blows in the first round. So it was a war, but he won the war. Unfortunately, he didn't win it for all of the fight. He just won it for one round, because in the second round, they picked up right where they left off. The moment the bell rang, they started swinging at each other again. Then, all of a sudden, Huerta got just creamed with a left hook. He was turning, and he didn't see it coming. Like, he was throwing a blow, and he was turning as he was throwing it, and the left hook caught him right behind the ear, and he stumbled, and he got back up, and then he got rocked again with a short right hand to the face, and he dropped to his knees and put his arms over his head, and it was like, oh my God, he's physically surrendering. He's done. What happened to him? And then, when the fight was over and he stood back up, and when he finally got to his feet again, his nose disappeared.
Yeesh.
Roger Huerta had no nose. It was impacted all the way into his face. It was as flat as a fucking pancake. Pitbull destroyed his nose.
Now, I think
I gotta repeat this because I feel like I'm underselling this. Sorry to interrupt. I'm talking, he had no nose left. It was like somebody surgically removed his nose from his face.
what I was going to say was, I think that should be a t-shirt. Pitbull Freire don't give a fuck.
It would sell. It would sell a lot.
Sell.
Yeah, Patricky Pitbull, if you didn't already think this guy hits like a Mack truck, Jesus, he just destroyed the man's nose and finished the fight at the same time. Just one right hand and no nose.
And at least Pitbull, I mean, I assume that he was very humble in the post-fight interview.
I don't know if humble is the right word. I mean, he is a modest guy when you interview him. He just knows he's good and knows what he's worth and it wants to get those opportunities. It's weird because I'm going to make it sound like he's cocky when he's really, it's just, he's stating facts. He's like,
Yeah.
who's done what I have? Who's beaten the former world champions I have? Brent Primus, stop running from me. I'll beat you too. And
I like that.
yeah, it's not like he's being cocky. He's just stating facts.
You think he's running from him?
I don't know if he is or he isn't, but it's sure a good quote.
It's quotable. Definitely quotable. Now, as far as the prelims, you mentioned off air, there are 3 fights here you circled on the list here.
Yeah, let me start with Steve Mowry versus Ben Moa. They were both undefeated, 4-0 coming into this fight. They are big boys, they're heavyweights, and look every bit the part of it. But Steve Mowry showed more than you see from most heavyweights because not only did he have a fleetness on the feet, he had excellent ground game, and he cinched up the right arm when it went to the ground, and Ben Moa tapped out to this Americana so fast, it was like a knockout. It was like, the fight's over. Holy shit, did he lock that Americana in fucking quick?
And half a round to go, it's like, I'm not gonna have this in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a clinical performance by Steve Mowry. I walked away from that fight thinking, damn, that's a heavyweight to watch out for. If he keeps winning and he beats better and better guys, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, not many heavyweights can pull off an Americana.
No.
All right, what's fight number 2?
All right, you said I circled 3. I believe the second was Tuwani versus Trevino. Am I correct about that?
You are correct, sir.
All right, well, this was a 2-0 fighter and a 2-0 fighter. So again, identical records coming in. But Tuwani, he kind of looked like a wild man. He had a long flowing mane of hair. Think like Troy Polamalu.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just out there throwing these haymaker shots, just trying like hell to connect with Trevino. You just got the feeling every time he'd let loose and he'd miss by a country mile, you could see he was putting his whole body into it, and you were thinking, damn, if he could just land one of those, he could finish this fight. And he did land a Superman punch at one point, and I was like, oh man, that was sweet, but it wasn't enough. It didn't rock Trevino. And Trevino he stayed calm through the storm. He just kept moving forward, kept working the jab, kept throwing his shots, kept finding his left hook. You know, he was just Mr. Calm, Mr. Patient, Mr. Relaxed in there. It was just another day at the office for him. And he was letting Tuwani go out there and gas himself and just keep throwing all this crazy shit. And in the second round, Trevino finally got things going his way. He landed a jumping knee, he landed a right hook, and Tuwani turned away and fell to his knees, and the fight was over. It was like, you just waited your time, you played the patient game, you played the long game here, and you won in the end. So, my hat's off to you, Trevino. You showed a wealth of experience beyond being 2-0 coming into this fight. You don't see fighters that calm and that patient when they're in there with a crazy man, and he was.
Now, the third fight, I'm trying to remember which one it was because I have one here that I want to ask you about.
I think the third one was Adam Boric and Josenaldo Silva.
Okay, so talk about the Silva fight first, and I'll ask you about the other fight in a second.
Well, the interesting part of the Josenaldo Silva fight is Silva used to be a contender in the World Series of Fighting back in the day. He, I believe, was a short notice replacement in a world title fight. So this guy has plenty of experience. He's 25-6 coming into this fight, and that's 3 to 4 times more experience than Boric, who is 7-0 coming into this fight. And on top of everything else, Silva missed weight for this fight. It was a 145-pound fight. 1 pound allowance would be 146, but Silva came in 147.5. And Boric, you know, he didn't have to take the fight. He had the option, and he said, nah, fuck it. I'll take this fight anyway. I'm here to fight. So good on him. And he was a guy who made his name by fighting on a Bellator card in Budapest and getting a very impressive finish there. And he apparently decided that he was going to try to do the same thing here. But first round, he might have outpointed him, but he didn't, land the big blow. The second round, he got into trouble because Silva realized he was down around, so he came out swinging hard and fast, and he clipped him, and he kicked him, and he rocked him, and he took him down, and there was blood streaming down Boric's face, and I was like, oh man, this kid's in big trouble now. He's gonna get destroyed in the third round. He just got owned for 5 minutes. But guess what? Boric found his second win. He came back out for the third round, and Silva clinched with him, and they went to the fence, and Boric threw a left hook and a high kick, and Silva threw a combo, and then we got a time, because Silva took a finger to the eye, and they decided it was just a glancing finger and not a, deep bruising blow, and he could see, and he got cleared to continue, and Silva, thinking, okay, I got a little rest, I can go for a takedown now, he dropped levels immediately, and Boric countered it, and took his back, and Silva stood up with him on his back, and Boric sunk in the rear naked choke and tapped him out. And it was like, holy fucking shit, kid. What a comeback there in round 3. You had a decent first round, you got owned in round 2, and you just found a way to get it done and stay undefeated against a vastly more experienced opponent. So, once again, a super impressive performance. I love watching preliminary fights when they're that good and they tell that much of a story.
Now, the fight I want to ask you about is the technical submission win here, Kyle Frost beating David Rangel.
I might be wrong, but that didn't air on on the DAZN streaming of the prelims. That did not air before Paramount Network went live.
Okay, so fair enough. I just thought, because whenever I see technical submission, it means he yelled or the ref jumped in because he couldn't make the tap, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm always curious.
Or the guy went out cold and the referee pulled him off. One or the other, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought I'd throw that out there, but...
Nope, they didn't air that fight, so I can't tell you anything about it.
It's a shame they didn't bonus that. Alright, let's move on to...
It didn't even take place before the card, because they were on Mountain Time, so those fights took place after the broadcast on Paramount.
That's right, they forgot about that. Let's talk about the show in Sao Paulo, Brazil. UFC Fight Night 137, Santos and Anders. Anders taking this fight on short notice, and, well, this went to the judges. Sorry, no it didn't.
No,
sorry,
what the hell are you talking about, man?
I watched, after I said, I'm like, wait a minute, I watched this fight. No, that didn't happen.
Yeah, let me jump in here, if I may.
Yeah.
What happened was, after a couple of crazy rounds, in the third round when Eric Anders was going for a takedown, Thiago Santos started elbowing him right in the fucking side of his head and just caused him to wilt and buckle and fall, and he kept going for the takedown, like instinctively he just kept fighting to get it, and the bell sounded, and they tried to get him to get up and go back to his corner, and he couldn't stand up. And so they pulled him up to his feet, and he stumbled, and he fell back down again, and the ref took one look at that and was like, nope, this fight's over. Yeah,
so what happened was, at the end of the round, Anders is sitting there on his butt, leaning against the referee's leg, and the referee knows that he's leaning on, he jumps out of the way, Anders kind of falls, then he tries to get back up, and falls again, and I'm like, okay, he's a little dizzy, his trainer's trying to help, come on buddy, get your corner, come on, let's go. He tried getting up one more time and completely fell over.
Yeah, he did a face plant. He just went straight down.
I've had more graceful face plants leaving the bar sometimes. It wasn't a pretty sight there, and the referee saw it. He's like, no, it's over. No, that's it.
Yeah, so it's a TKO by referee stoppage, but it's a TKO any way you want to slice it, because Thiago Santos rocked him so good he could not continue.
What I wrote down in my notes is round 2, 5 minutes, and I read
round
that like
three,
round
5
3.
minutes.
Well, that's what I meant. I read it like round 3, 5 minutes, like it was the end of the fight, and I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense.
Well, I think some of the fans in Sao Paulo thought the referee was stopping it at the end of that round because Anders had got destroyed, and then he stopped it anyway, so they got what they wanted.
Sledgehammer proving his namesake, and I think a better tattoo than Mr. Lesnar.
Yeah, well, less phallic, I will say that.
Ha! Didn't think of that one, Stevie. You popped me with that one. Santos is dominant. I mean, I didn't like Anderson short nose taking this fight anyway. He manned up. Good for him, but yeah, this was Santos all the way.
No, Anders did have his moments. He was here and there. He was getting in a few good shots, and whenever Santos would respond with better shots, he was going for the takedowns. So Anders was playing a smart game here. He had a strategy that was working for him up to a point, but once he got caught with those elbows in the temple, it was not working anymore.
Well, let's talk about Alex Oliveira and Carlo Pedersol Jr. This one,
not very long. It was shorter than the AJ McKee fight, 39 seconds.
Yeah, you could watch the entire clip on I was almost going to say, what was that? Not Vine. What was it? Tout.
Yeah, that was the one. 30 seconds.
Jeez, that was
Vines were only like 8 seconds, so not long enough for that.
Yeah, I mean, this fight, Cowboy, they showed him entering the building, like they showed some of the fighters walk in. He's got the cowboy hat on, he's smiling. I don't think he broke a sweat in this fight.
No, I don't think so. Well, maybe he did, because he climbed up the fence after he got the knockout and ran over and hugged all his teammates and hugged everybody there at cage side, and then he just calmly walked back in. But if he broke out in a sweat, it was from climbing up the fence.
Well, I mean, it was, how do I say this? It was dominant, absolutely.
One-sided?
I'm trying to think. Oliveira, you don't mess with him. I'm trying to determine, like, whenever I see a dominant performance like this, I'm always asking who's next or what's next. I'm really having a hard time trying to figure out.
Well, the problem here is I don't even think you can really tell that much, because he was just, this was such a mismatch. It was not even close.
That's scary to say.
Yeah, I mean, this guy didn't belong in the same cage with Alex Oliveira.
No, I think, I think he didn't belong in the cage is probably a good recap of that one, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Smiling Sam Alvey. He wasn't smiling for this fight against Lil Nog.
Well, he was initially, before the fight and at the start of the fight, and when he got rocked, he smiled too, but that was the telling smile. That's the one where fighters try to no-sell that they got hurt by their opponent, and they smile and go, you didn't get me. It's like the moment you do that, you're telling your opponent that you got hurt. And Rogerio Nogueira is experienced enough and savvy enough to know that tell and to smell the blood in the water, and he just went after it.
It was like that fight we saw a couple weeks ago where he's like, come on! Head kick.
Yeah, that was the Camacho fight where he screamed, come on! And then he got killed.
Alvey, at the end, after the fight was stopped, he went for a takedown, and the referee's like, no, it's over. Stay down.
Yeah.
Stay down. He
was so loopy, he was trying to clinch with the referee.
And Little Nog, you gotta think his dance card's pretty full at this point. You think there's any, how many fights does he have left?
Well, I know one fighter on this show retired. I don't think it was Nog. I think it was Evan Dunham.
Yeah, Dunham retired, but, I mean, Nogueira, I'm thinking maybe 2 fights, 3 at the most?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he's already 42 years old, and probably not going to get a bigger or better reaction than he gets for winning in Brazil on the main card of a live broadcast. So there aren't too many more sunsets for him. You know, it's like you could ride out on this one and capstone a great career, but I could see him coming back for 1 or 2 more.
Let's move on to Renan Barão and Andre Ewell.
This is embarrassing.
Yeah.
This is embarrassing for many reasons. First of all, it's embarrassing that Renan Barão missed weight again. Second of all, it's embarrassing that one judge actually thinks that Renan Barão won this fight. And the third thing that's embarrassing about it is that Barão lost 30% of his purse. But maybe it should have been more than that, considering I don't think he even came close to winning this fight.
This fight was more embarrassing than the new Philadelphia Flyers mascot.
The one that looks like Animal?
The one was like Yuppie's, the Montreal Canadiens.
No.
They,
No,
hold on.
It looks like Animal from the Muppets. Animal, animal, animal. Ah!
I'm gonna give you a little bit of a lesson here, Stevie. You know the Montreal Expos mascot Yuppie?
Yes, I
When
remember.
the Expos left town, he became the Montreal Canadiens mascot. Yeah, I think he still is. The Montreal Canadiens actually put a tweet out saying, in both official languages, the cousin that Yuppie doesn't talk about.
That's hilarious, but I still think the Flyers' new mascot looks like Animal from the Muppet Show.
Animal's a good comparison. I will give you that, but it's, Henan Barrow, how do you miss that much weight? I mean, you're a professional fighter, for crying out loud.
This is the same guy who fucked up a title fight by trying to cut too much weight and knocking himself out when he slipped in the bathtub.
He pulled a shamrock getting hurt before the fight.
Yeah, he did, literally, from trying to cut too much weight. This guy, okay, at one point, this guy was legitimately the best bantamweight in the world, bar none. We are long removed from those days.
Uo wins via split decision. I had Uo winning this fight. The problem that I had was Barrow's reaction at the end of this fight, because when they raised Uo's hand, Barrow had this look like he was surprised that he lost.
Oh,
and I'm
please,
watching it
come the fuck on.
I'm watching it like, are you serious? I mean, it was a close fight, and if you live by the sword, you die by the sword, and we always say on the show, never leave it to the judges. He left the fight in the hands of 3 guys at cage side, and shit happens.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of leaving it in the hands of the judges, Randa Marcos and Marina Rodriguez went to a majority draw.
I can't believe... I mean, I'm not surprised. Okay, I am surprised it went to a majority draw. I didn't have it as a draw. I had Marcos winning this fight, but...
Well, the funny thing is, the only judge that scored the winner Rodriguez.
I think the one round everyone is, like, I had it 2 rounds to 1. I could see how that 1 round could be very close to draw round. I get it. I understand it. I'm kind of a sucker for a sequel or a rematch. I kind of want to see them fight again.
I'd rather see Augusto Sakai and Chase Sherman fight again.
Now there you go. That would be a good fight. I'm just trying to... Boy, oh boy, there's some good fights we should talk about on this show.
But we're already starting to get a little long in the tooth here.
Oh, I know. I do want to mention Evan Dunham. That was the one prelim fight I did want to talk about before we move on to the news. Evan Dunham in his last fight got beat by Francisco Trinaldo. TKO'd in the second round at 4:10.
Brutal knee to the body. Just destroyed him.
Oh, it was can a liver kick be a liver knee?
I think this was a liver knee. I don't question that, because the effectiveness of it just folded Evan Dunham like a house of cards.
He folded like an accordion. That's probably very apt to what you just said there, Stevie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as the news goes, I mean, we've got a lot of news that came out of the show, so we've already mentioned a bunch of it. I'm just trying to go back here. We should start the news with, let's talk about John Jones. I guess we have to start there.
Well, you made an appearance on Thursday Night AMP to talk about it, so I don't know how much there is to add other than his manager is a fucking idiot.
That's exactly where I was going with that, with his coach basically saying John Jones did not snitch on any fighter.
Not his coach, his manager.
Manager, sorry.
Malki Kawa.
And
then the athletic commission immediately, wasted absolutely no time immediately rebutting that, citing the section and paragraph of the code that says you can be given a reduced sentence for turning information over to us, and if at any point you renege on that deal, you immediately get the full length of your suspension back.
So,
Yeah, Malkikawa's over here going, John Jones ain't no snitch. And the athletic commissioner is like, oh, yes, he is.
See the signature? He actually signed this document.
He gave us what we wanted, so we gave him a reduced sentence, and you can't tell us otherwise. And quit trying to, or we'll give him his full sentence back. Capiche?
Now, we don't talk much KSW on this show. It's a promotion that doesn't get a lot of press here.
I get their press releases. I share them on the website.
There is a fight coming up at KSW 45. I did want to mention that might catch their eyebrows here.
The James McSweeney fight?
Against Thiago Silva.
Yes, indeed. And I find it interesting that this is a fight they're promoting so heavily when McSweeney is 15-16. Not a stellar record.
Is it that bad?
Yes, it is. If you doubt it, look it up for yourself.
I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah, it's not good.
Oh, man. Oh, boy.
I think that fight is going to end badly for him.
Well, let's move on to a retirement. Former UFC fighter Mark Goodbeer is calling it a career.
Well, not just former UFC. He's been in several promotions. He was even, I believe, in Bellator for a stint.
Let's see. He was in UFC, Bellator, and Bama.
Exactly.
And, of course, he announced it like most fighters do these days.
Twitter.
On social media. Yeah, Facebook.
Whatever.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Alistair Overeem has switched camps. He's joined Curtis Blades in Colorado at Team Elevation.
Oh, well, that could be a good change for him.
We do have some breaking news here. It's UFC related, and I'm really not sure how to react on this right now. A few hours ago, this wasn't hit the wire, I guess you could say, Stevie. But I'm just going to read the first paragraph here. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, who knocked out Nico Price at UFC 228.
Did he test positive?
No. 5 months before the fight, he was on a $20,000 bail bond for a sexual assault charge.
Oh, dear God.
While working as a bouncer.
Fuck. That's not the kind of publicity you want.
No, and I'm sure we'll get more between now and next week's episode. I just saw this and I was like, we have to talk, at least mention it on the show. Up and coming star. I mean, obviously, this is bad news. This is a black eye for him, the sport.
And I mean, he just came off such a great performance at that pay-per-view. Jesus, why did you do that shit and fuck things up and ruin what could have been such a great moment for yourself?
Well, here's the one that catches my eye here. According to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, if the judge did not grant a request to modify the terms of the bail, he could train and fight, he wouldn't even be on that show at UFC 228.
So he got an exemption from the judge just to be on the card is what you're saying.
Exactly my point. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Wow. That's a bad look.
And I'm just going to check here.
And UFC ain't looking too good these days anyway with re-employing John Jones, so you don't want to be looking more bad than you already do.
And we got two more news bits before we talk about this weekend's Bellator show. Dustin Poirier, I love this idea. Dustin Poirier wants the main event against Nate Diaz for the 165 title. Wait, 165 title?
Well, that would be the theoretical weight they could both easily make, I guess.
We've talked about the 165 title before, but anytime you put Poirier and Diaz in the main event, yeah.
I still think any title between 155 and 170 is a dumbass idea.
We've talked about that.
I would sooner see a division between light heavyweight and heavyweight.
Yeah, there's a significant gap there. You could do that. But then you said the argument before where it turns into boxing.
Right. Too many title belts just dilute the whole thing and make it all meaningless.
Well, one more. I have a fight announcement here to wrap up the news this week. Tyson Pedro has been added to the UFC Fight Night 142 in Australia. His opponent, Mauricio Shogun Rua.
Ooh, okay. That's something to look forward to.
Remember what the main event is for that fight?
You'll have to refresh me.
Tai
Tuivasa?
against JDS.
Nice, yes. That's one to watch.
Yeah. So let's talk about this weekend's Bellator show. I have a funny feeling you have a couple of opinions here. Let's start with the main event for Canadian fans. It's a chance to see Rory MacDonald on DAZN. He's got a tough fight here against Gegard Mousasi.
Yeah, there are so many different ways I can slice and dice this, but let me just start with something that Rory MacDonald said on the conference call last week. He does not believe in putting on inflated weight. He doesn't believe in water weight or packing on extra muscle. He believes he is an ideal fighter already, and he's fighting at his natural weight without cutting weight. And so he's not going to pack on any extra weight just to face Gegard Mousasi at middleweight. He believes he can fight the perfect fight exactly the way he is.
So he's a natural welterweight then?
Well, actually, he's kind of implying he's a natural middleweight who cuts to welterweight. That's kind of what he's saying.
So you're saying... Oh, wait a minute.
Because he was talking about the fact that he's like a natural 190.
Huh. I didn't know that. Then what the hell is he doing in welterweight? You know what? Stupid question. I know the answer to that.
Yes, you do. But then you could ask the same question of Gegard Mousasi. You could say, what's this guy doing at middleweight? Because he's fought at light heavyweight and heavyweight, and he's been a champion before at light heavyweight. In fact, if you look at Gegard Mousasi, you take a good look at his frame, you would probably think light heavyweight. And he himself, on the conference call, said, I've been cutting weight most of my life. I'm sick of it. Once I'm done cutting weight, I'm never going back down again.
Oh, the whole cutting weight for years and years, it makes you shudder a little bit to think how much damage long term that's going to cause you, you know?
And you can tell that a guy who's had as many fights as Gegard has had, over 50 MMA fights in his career to date, knows what he's talking about when he says that.
No, I mean, you've got to remember, was the Ultimate Fighter when the casual fans were introduced to like the garbage bag suits in the sauna with the bikes and people passing out at the scale? And,
that's Ultimate Fighter was where we all really got the deep cut look at just how bad weight cutting can be.
Yeah, it's not a pretty thing. It's something that I hope, I like the fact if you want to fight at your natural weight, that's where you should be. If you want to cut one weight class like MacDonald here, I mean, that's okay. But then you got guys like Connor who fight at, Connor's no way is a natural 145. There's no way. You see him on the scale, he's skin and bones.
Yeah, Connor is a lightweight for sure. He is actually a welterweight when he wants to be.
Yikes, that's scary.
There's a lot of scary things when you talk about weight cutting. If we get lost in that conversation, we're never getting back out from the well.
Well, I mean, K-Flow, he fought in 4 different weight classes in UFC, so...
this is my point exactly. When we go down this rabbit hole, we're never getting back to Wonderland again. We're just going to be there forever.
So if MacDonald wins this fight, does he go up a weight class, or he's like, you know what, I tried it, I'm going back to welter?
Okay, we're going to go back to the conference call again, because his explanation of being a natural 190 fighter was, I'm naturally this weight, so I can fight at middleweight, and if I don't pack on any extra weight, then I don't have to cut any extra weight, so I can be in this welterweight tournament no problem because I'm fighting natural.
But my question is, do you think if he succeeds here, that he'll just abandon, like...
No, I'm answering the question you asked.
Okay.
He made it point clear on the conference call, hey, look, I can fight this fight at a natural weight, and then I can just go back to doing what I already did before at welterweight. So this is not a problem for me. I'm fighting natural for this middleweight title fight. I win the middleweight title, and then I'm going to run through the welterweight tournament. I'm going to do it all.
Jesus, I don't know.
I mean, okay, maybe he's talking out of his ass, but this is the Red King Rory MacDonald, and he's done things that we haven't seen a lot of other men do.
Yeah, I don't like it.
And there's something, I don't want to call it charisma because that's not quite the right word for it. It's almost charisma by lack of charisma. And I don't mean that as a negative, and I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean there's just something very peculiar about Rory MacDonald. And I've talked to him a couple of times now with these conference calls, and I've listened to him way many more times than that between Bellator and UFC. And there's just, it's almost like a serial killer. And I hate saying that because that just sounds awful. But he's got such a, just a ruthlessness, just a coldness about him, like just matter of factness to the way he says things, like, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna do whatever I want. I'm doing a terrible job of describing this, but there's just something dispassionate about him, the way he can just mechanically and methodically take people apart. And then he'll say these wacky things like, I'm gonna take your soul. And you're like, okay, normal people don't talk like that. And that's kind of what works for him.
Okay, Shang Tsung, whatever you say.
Exactly. It's like he's out of a Mortal Kombat game. It's like he's a video game character come to life.
Well, let's, speaking of Mortal Kombat characters, Wanderlei Silva and Rampage Jackson.
This one is just fun. And I'm not saying it's a good idea, and I'm not saying it's a quality fight. I think that's the wrong term for it. I think actually Rampage came the closest to explaining this out of the two of them when he said, look, there should be fights for older guys. He's an older guy. I'm an older guy. It's better for us to fight each other than to be fighting younger guys. And I was like, you know what? When he puts it like that, I can't argue with him.
He just made the argument for a seniors division.
I guess that's what he's arguing, but if that's what we've got here, then fine. Let the two of them fight each other.
I mean, I'm okay with veteran fighting veteran, but dear God, if we have a seniors division of fighters in their mid to late 30s, I don't like that idea. That's recipe for disaster.
Actually, mid to late 30s is pretty young for fighters since we've got fighters fighting in their 40s now. If you're talking about a seniors division, you're probably talking guys in their late 40s, early 50s.
Well, I did see UFC back in the archives. I did see fight refereed by Dan Severn, so I mean, there's a name if I think seniors division.
Actually, when I think seniors division, I'm thinking Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz.
Oh, why did you bring that one up?
Actually, somebody on the conference call brought it up, so it's kind of fresh in my mind right now. Because Rampage was actually asked about it. He's like, I got respect for both of those guys. If they want to still do it, let them do it.
We've both had our conversation about that one. Wanderlei Silva, is he still the last fighter not to train with headgear? Or last fighter not to train with headgear?
I wouldn't say that, but I would say if he didn't, he would be motivated to, because for him, it's personal. He's like, there aren't many real rivalries in this sport. We are real rivals. We don't like each other.
Oh boy. Well, let's move on to Andrei Korshakov against Douglas Lima. This fight I want to see very badly.
It's the kickoff to the welterweight Grand Prix, and these are two warriors who know each other of old because they have traded back and forth the welterweight title. Korshakov took it from Lima in a 5-round decision, and Lima took it back from Korshakov by knocking him out in Israel. And now neither one of them has the title because Rory MacDonald has taken that belt. So for either one of them to get the opportunity to get it back, they have to run their entire side of the bracket and get to the finals, and or hope that MacDonald also runs the bracket on his side and gets to the finals. So a lot of things in play here, but first, one of these two men has to beat the other and take the 2-1 lead in their best of 3 series.
I mean, this is a fight where one man has to win, but unfortunately one man has to lose. And I'm not sure who's losing this fight. I mean, you fight these guys 10 times, you're probably going to have 5 and 5.
Actually, I said those exact words in my recap preview. I was like, okay, 10 times, 5 and 5 between these two. They're so well matched. Like, let me give you the statistics. Lima is 6'1" with a 71-inch reach, and he's finished 24 of 29 fights that he's won. That's 83%. 11 knockouts and 13 submissions. But Koreshkov is exactly the same height, has 3 more inches in reach, and has 12 knockouts with 3 submissions on his record. So, you could say that on the one hand, Koreshkov has the reach advantage, but on the other hand, you could say Lima has more experience and has finished more people. So, it is a complete toss-up between the two of them. They are very, very, very evenly matched.
Who has more power?
Oh, if you really forced me to answer that question, I would have to say Douglas Lima, just because I've been to his fights. I've seen it myself. I haven't seen Koreshkov in person, so I can't make that same assessment. But I have seen how hard Douglas Lima hits, and in person, it's a spectacle. It's a thing to behold.
All right. Let's move on to another fight that, could steal the show. Aaron Pico and Leonardo Higo.
Leandro.
I always screw that name up.
Yeah, it's not Leonardo. He's not a Mutant Ninja Turtle.
You always make that reference.
Well, when you stop saying it that way, I'll stop making the reference. Heroes in a half shell, turtle power.
Oh boy, hi Etienne. Let's talk about this fight here. Pico, this is a test for him. This is a huge test for Pico.
Every fight is a huge test for him. He hasn't faced an opponent he has more experience than yet. Every person he faces has 2 to 3 times as many fights, let alone wins. And Leandro Higo may be the biggest example of that to date because he has 22 fights coming in to Pico's 4. But this is the thing. Aaron Pico is a wonder to behold when it comes to his striking, particularly his body shots. Aaron Pico was a great wrestler. He was an Olympic caliber wrestler. They were actually expecting him to win a gold medal at the Olympics. That's how good he is. But what he has developed into as a mixed martial artist goes beyond that because he has stopping power you don't often see in fighters at 145 pounds. He can stop you with a body shot, and I really can't exaggerate that enough. He hits you so hard in the ribs, in the liver, in whatever he can hit on your body that he doesn't even need to concuss you. He can stop you with a body shot. And he does it so often that people ought to just drop their hands and cover up their midsection instead of holding them up to protect their head. That's how dangerous he is.
The one thing about Pico is, yes, he's a good fighter. Hell, he's a great fighter. The thing that I've taken from Pico is that he's only getting better.
He's getting better faster than just about anybody. Maybe AJ McKee is the only person who can rival him in getting better fast.
And fighters who get better with each fight, oh boy, this is going to be fun.
Mm-hmm. I'm expecting Pico to win this. In fact, I'm predicting first round knockout.
Quickly, let's go over the other 2 fights here. We've got Dakota Zimmerman and Kerry Melendez.
Easy win for Melendez. Zimmerman is completely inexperienced. Melendez is a great kickboxer, and she's undefeated in MMA. I see this going easily her way.
Just don't go to the ground.
And the featherweight fight, Gaston Bolanos and Isidro Gutierrez, that's a late addition to the card, so I have no opinion.
All right, so before we go, we do have one, literally just got a message about this. Remember last week we talked about Mark Hunt having one more fight in Australia?
He got it, didn't he?
He got it against Justin Willis, December 2nd, Australia.
All right, well, that's his last hurrah.
Oh, that's the end of an era right there in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Stevie, what's on tap for Thursday night at EMP?
We'll talk about what happened on Raw with Bree, and we'll just figure out what the hell that's all about. Hopefully Liv Morgan's okay.
And hopefully William Huckabee's fine. Have you heard? Is he?
Yeah, he's
his family
taping a
safe and
show
sound?
on Friday, so he's got everything together.
Okay, and I do want to give a quick shout out to everyone affected by the tornadoes here in Ottawa this past weekend. Donate to your local food banks. It really does help a lot. And
Yeah, and donate to the Carolinas, too.
Absolutely, and a big shout out to the first responders and the hydro workers who got all the power back. Pretty much all the power is back now. My brother just got power back yesterday, so it took a few days for him to get power again. So the hydro workers working 16-hour shifts to get the whole city back. They said the one major one, Stevie, was the equivalent of an F3, which is super rare for this part of the world. So
yeah,
all right,
not unusual here.
All right. Well, for Stevie J, I'm Peter H, the Hardcore Canadian. Thanks for listening. And as I always say, never leave it to the judges. Good night, everybody.
See ya.